You are the man I saw in my dreams. According to the sacred law, you are my husband now. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.
The sun sagged behind Silver Mesa, leaving a tired orange light across the rock formations shaped by wind and time. The land felt remote, far from any town, far from anyone who could help if trouble came. Cole Maddox rode through that emptiness with only his horse for company. He lived this way on purpose. Cole had served 6 years in the cavalry. He had followed orders, seen men he trained with fall, and watched innocent people get caught in the middle. War hollowed out his faith in leaders and justice. After discharge, he spent 2 more years trying to live among people in town. But the noise, the looks, the memories, they pushed him out again. Now at 39, Cole worked supply runs and odd tracking jobs. No family, no friends. One mission left: stay alive and keep to himself. But missions change without permission. About 50 yards ahead, something lay half buried in dust and shadow. At first, Cole thought it was clothing blown off a wagon. Then it moved, slow and weak like a dying animal. His spine tightened. He pressed his boot lightly into the stirrup, scanning the ridge and the drainage ditch for anyone waiting. Nothing. He rode closer. Then he saw her, a young Apache woman trying to crawl. Her breathing was fast and sharp. Blood soaked the right side of her deerskin dress. The shoulder seam had ripped wide, exposing most of her chest on that side. She tried to cover herself while also holding pressure over the wound, but her strength was failing. Her hair, long and black, was tangled with dirt and dried sweat. Her bare feet were scraped raw from running. Cole dismounted quickly and circled slowly, keeping one hand near his revolver. He didn't know what happened here. Ambushes sometimes used wounded people as bait. His mind played that possibility through. If someone aimed at him now, he would have 1 second to react. "Can you hear me?" he asked, steady and controlled. Her eyes lifted toward him, dark, alert beneath exhaustion. She tried to speak. Only a faint sound came out. Her fear wasn't of him, he realized, but of something or someone still behind them. Cole scanned the horizon again. Empty, but the kind of empty that felt temporary. He knelt to her level. "Who did this?" She swallowed hard. "Men," she whispered. "They tried to take me. I fought, ran." Her voice cracked. She looked around again like danger could rise from the dirt. Cole's jaw tightened. He knew men like that. He had seen the worst kind thrive in places with too much land and too little law. Every instinct told him she wasn't lying. Every instinct told him someone might be watching right now. "We need to move," he said. She tried to push up. Her arm buckled. She nearly fell flat, but Cole caught her with both hands, feeling how light and warm she was, fever starting beneath the dirt and blood. She sucked a breath in from the pain, eyes squeezing shut. Her torn dress slipped lower, exposing more of her breast than she would ever willingly show. She quickly grabbed the fabric, cheeks tightening with embarrassment. "I'm not going to harm you," Cole said. "I'm getting you out of here." She nodded once, barely. No other choice. He lifted her carefully, adjusting his hold so he didn't touch too close to the exposed area. He felt her body tremble against him. The wound pulsed heat through his shirt. She smelled like smoke, dust, and fear. As he mounted again with her in front of him, she pressed one hand against his chest for balance. Her other stayed clamped over her wound. She breathed fast, each inhale unsteady. "Do you have a name?" he asked, keeping her alert. "Ayana," she said. "Cole," he answered. Her gaze took him in quickly, scar under his jaw, rough beard, military straight posture. She guessed his background before he said more. She didn't know if that made him more dangerous or more dependable. He kicked the horse into motion. The cabin wasn't far, but darkness would make the land colder and more brutal. Ayana's grip on his shirt tightened every time her vision blurred. She kept glancing behind them, expecting the worst. Cole felt her fear like a second heartbeat. Inside, he cursed himself. He didn't want someone in his home, didn't want responsibility, didn't want a reminder of the past. But leaving her would be the same as killing her. And he had sworn, quietly, to himself, never again to let someone die because no one cared. By the time they reached his cabin, the sky was nearly dark. The small building stood alone against the landscape. Rough logs, one window, smoke hole patched 3 times. A place built for survival, not comfort. He carried her inside and laid her on his bed. It was the only bed he had. Ayana's chest rose too fast. She clutched the blanket as soon as he placed it over her, making sure it covered the exposed side of her dress. She didn't want him to see her body. She didn't want anyone to see her as property again. Cole grabbed his water bucket and medical kit, supplies meant for livestock and himself, not strangers. He cleaned the wound with sharp precision learned from battlefield necessity. Ayana gripped the edge of the mattress hard enough her knuckles faded white. He spoke while working, voice low to ground her fear. "How many were after you?" "3," she whispered. "Maybe 4. They said they would sell me to a mine camp. I broke one's nose. I ran." Cole nodded at that. Fighting back meant she hadn't given up. The wound was deep but clean. A blade, likely during the struggle. If it didn't stitch it now, infection would spread fast. "This part will be rough," he warned. She nodded, jaw clenching. Her whole body went stiff as he pulled needle and thread through skin. Each stitch sent a shockwave of pain up her side. She gasped, back arching, which made the blanket slip slightly. Cole caught it instantly and fixed it back over her chest before she had to. She noticed, and she relaxed half an inch. He finished, then wrapped cloth around her ribs to keep the area stable. Her eyes watered, not from pain alone. Fear, shame, exhaustion, gratitude, it all tangled together. Cole stepped back, wiping blood from his fingers. "You're safe here tonight," he said. Ayana studied him, trying to understand what safe meant to a man like him. His expression looked carved from stone, but his actions hadn't matched that hardness. She forced out the words her grandmother once told her to speak if the spirits guided her path. "You are the man I saw in my dreams," Ayana said. "According to the sacred law, you are now my husband." Silence filled the room. Cole's heartbeat pounded in his neck. Marriage wasn't something he thought about. Not for years. Not since the woman he once intended to build a life with left him for a man who wasn't broken inside. He had never blamed her. He would have left himself too. Ayana's hand trembled as she reached for him. Not demanding. Not claiming ownership. Asking trust. Asking choice. Cole stared at her hand for a moment. Memories of every failure and every grave behind him reminding him he didn't deserve something new. But she was here, hurt, alone, and choosing him. Not because she needed a rescuer, but because he didn't walk away. Slowly, he placed his hand in hers. Ayana's breath eased. Cole didn't promise anything out loud. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But he made a decision right there that would rewrite his quiet life. No one would take her again. He pulled a chair near the bed and sat, revolver ready at his hip. He watched the door, listening to every shift of night wind. Ayana closed her eyes, fingers still looped around his wrist, too afraid to let go, too weak to stay awake. Cole stayed awake for both of them. The fire had burned low by the time dawn came, leaving only red embers pushing a weak glow across the cabin floor. Cole hadn't slept. He stayed in the wooden chair beside the bed, one hand resting near the revolver on his hip, the other draped over his knee. His eyes remained fixed on the door as if the night itself were planning to break it down. Ayana shifted under the blanket, a small pained sound leaving her lips. Sweat clung to her forehead. When she tried to turn, instinct made her grab the blanket tight against her chest, checking her dress was still covered. Her first sight was him, still there, still watching, exactly where she last saw him before sleep dragged her under. For a second, she looked confused, as if unsure whether she had dreamed safety or actually found it. Then her gaze softened in relief. "You stayed," she whispered, voice rough from thirst. "I said I would." Cole answered, not taking his eyes off her for long. He poured water and held the cup for her so she wouldn't strain the stitches. She tried sitting up, gritting her teeth against the pain. Cole placed a pillow behind her back, careful not to get too close to the injured side. She watched his hands. She noticed the small scars across his knuckles, the way he moved with quiet certainty, like everything he did was calculated to avoid unnecessary harm. After a long drink, she let the cup rest on her lap. "Where am I?" "My place," Cole replied. "Nearest settlement is 20 miles east. Nobody comes out here unless they're lost or looking for trouble." She nodded slowly. She understood isolation. Sometimes it was safety, and sometimes it was a sentence. Cole finally met her eyes. "Those men, they after you specifically, or they after any woman alone?" Ayana swallowed, thinking, "They followed our group. Traitors. They carried weapons hidden. We trusted wrong. They killed 2 women. The rest scattered. I ran." Shame flickered in her eyes. Running kept her alive, but also left others behind. Cole didn't judge her. Survival wasn't a crime. "You were lucky I found you first," he said, voice low. "Maybe it wasn't luck," she murmured. Cole didn't respond to that. Believing in fate only led to disappointment. He stood and checked the window, looking out over the open land behind the cabin. Tracks in the dirt would be visible for miles. If they're tracking you, they'll find this place sooner or later. Ayana's hand tightened around the blanket. Fear rose again, not the kind that screamed, but the quiet dread of being dragged back into the hands of men who saw her as property. Cole saw it, and something hardened inside him. "Nobody's taking you," he said. He didn't say it loud, but he said it like a man who already decided what he was willing to do. Ayana stared at him, trying to understand who he really was. He spoke so little, yet every word felt like a stake driven into the ground, unmoving and final. "You used to be a soldier," she said, not asking but realizing. "A long time ago. Did you leave because of what you saw?" Cole paused, jaw tight. "Because of what I did." That was all he gave her. All he could give without breaking open a place he kept buried. Ayana leaned back, exhausted. She shivered, so Cole added wood to the fire. Heat spread slowly. He poured oatmeal into a pot, cooking without noise, without fuss. When he set the bowl in her hands, she hesitated, surprised he would serve her first. "No one's fed me since," her voice trailed off. Cole didn't press for details. She tasted the food like she wasn't sure she deserved it. After a few quiet minutes, her eyes lifted again. "Why do you live out here alone?" Cole considered lying, but something in her gaze demanded respect. "My past has too many ghosts. Easier to live where they can't find me." "Do you think they won't follow you here?" she asked. "No," he admitted. "Ghosts always keep up." Ayana nodded once. She understood ghosts better than he knew. Hers still chased her through sleep. She placed the bowl aside and shifted painfully, hands gripping the blanket again. The motion made the loose neckline dip slightly. She tugged it up fast, cheeks heating with humiliation. Cole didn't look at her body, but he noticed the fear behind the reaction. "You don't need to be afraid of me," he said, softer than before. "Men say that," she whispered. "Then they lie." Cole didn't argue. The world had proven her right. Instead, he picked up his coat. "I'm going to check the ridge. Make sure no one's near." Ayana stiffened. "Don't leave me alone long." "I won't." He paused at the door. "Lock it behind me. If someone rides up, don't open for anyone but me." She nodded and, despite the pain, pulled herself up enough to slide the lock into place once he stepped out. She clutched the blanket around her chest and listened to his boots crunch against the dry earth until the footsteps faded. For the first time since she ran, she wasn't running. But fear didn't leave just because a door was locked. She traced the stitches on her side, remembering rough hands grabbing her the night before, remembering the terror when she realized she couldn't outrun all of them. She thought of the sacred law, dreams that show a husband mean a future not taken by violence. She hoped the spirits had chosen right. She hoped Cole was a man who would stand and not disappear. Outside, Cole scanned the land. His heart had been dead quiet for years. Now it beat with something that felt dangerously close to purpose. He looked back toward the cabin once more before continuing the sweep. He would defend her, not because a dream said he should, not because she asked, but because walking away wasn't possible anymore. He wasn't a savior. He was just a man trying to do one thing right. And for now, protecting Ayana was the only thing that mattered. Cole returned to the cabin after checking the ridge, boots sending small puffs of dust into the air as he stepped up onto the porch. He listened first. The wind, the silence, nothing else. When he knocked twice on the wood, the lock slid back almost immediately. Ayanna stood near the door, one hand holding the blanket around her and the other gripping a small knife he hadn't realized was missing from his table. She lowered it as soon as she saw him. "You did right," Cole said simply. "Never assume it's safe." She nodded, breathing out a slow sigh as she stepped aside for him to enter. Her movements were still stiff from the wound, but she tried hard not to show weakness. She watched him set the rifle down near the door and shake dust from his coat. "Did you see anyone?" she asked. "Not yet," he replied, and Ayanna caught the important part of that answer. "Not yet." Cole lit another lantern and looked around the cabin with a soldier's mind. Where the structural weaknesses were, what could be used as a barricade, what sight lines an attacker might have. He began moving a heavy wooden chest against the window. Ayanna recognized the behavior. She had seen men prepare defenses before battle. He caught her watching him and paused. "They'll follow the blood trail," he said. "Men like that don't quit until someone makes them." Ayanna tightened her grip on the blanket. "They will not stop because they believe women are things to trade." She stared at the floor. "They took my older sister 4 winters ago. I never saw her again." Cole's jaw clenched. This wasn't random. This was a pattern. And patterns meant danger would not disappear on its own. He dragged over one more piece of furniture, reinforcing the door. The sound of wood scraping across the floor broke the silence that had settled between them. "You have people?" Ayanna asked quietly. "Had," Cole answered. He didn't turn to face her yet. "Parents died when I was young. Only woman I planned to marry left before I could ruin her life with mine." He finally looked over at her. "Closest thing to family I got now is a grave on a hill a few miles from here. A friend who didn't make it home from the war." Ayanna's eyes softened. Pain, recognized pain. "You stay here because you think you are protecting others by staying away," she said. "But ghosts find lonely men easier than they find those surrounded by care." Cole didn't reply. He wasn't used to being understood that quickly. She tried to take a step toward him, but her leg buckled with the effort. Cole moved fast, catching her by the elbow before she fell. The blanket slipped again, exposing the curve of her shoulder and the upper part of her chest. She froze, eyes wide, instinctive fear rising in her breath. Cole immediately turned his gaze upward, focusing on her face. He helped secure the blanket back into place, fingers careful, distant, respectful. "No one is touching you here without your say," he said, steady as a rock. "Not even me." Those words hit deeper than medicine. She relaxed slightly in his hold, trusting him a little more than before. He helped her sit back on the bed. When her breathing steadied, she spoke again. "You asked what they want with me." Her fingers twisted the blanket edge. "They saw me help an elder woman escape. They call me troublemaker. Said my value is high because I fight." She looked up. "They hurt women like that to control others." Cole nodded slowly. Now he understood why they would chase her instead of abandoning the hunt. Ayanna wasn't just a victim. They saw her as a threat to their business. "We'll be ready when they come," he said. It wasn't bravado. It was a plan forming piece by piece in his mind. Ayanna watched the way he spoke, the way his eyes never drifted to her body, the way he stood between her and every danger without being asked. The spirits, she believed, did not make mistakes. Her fingers brushed lightly against his wrist again, like she needed to confirm he was still real. "Why do you help a stranger?" He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. "Someone helped me once," he answered quietly. "Most days I feel like I never repaid that debt." Before Ayanna could respond, the wind shifted suddenly and a faint hoarse whinny echoed from the distance. Too sharp, too deliberate to be wild. Cole stepped toward the door and blew out the lanterns in one quick motion. The cabin fell into darkness lit only by the fire's low red glow. He whispered, "Get down. Stay behind the bed." Ayanna moved as fast as her pain allowed, crouching behind the wooden frame. Her heart thudded loud enough she was sure the intruder would hear it. Cole knelt beside the door, rifle ready, eyes narrowed toward the faint shapes approaching under the moonlight. Shadows moved along the ridge, one rider, then another. Ayanna's breath caught. "It's them," she whispered. Cole didn't look at her when he spoke, but his voice held no hesitation. "They're not taking you," he said again. His finger rested on the trigger. "Not while I'm alive." The riders slowed as they reached the edge of the property, dark shapes against the moonlit ridge. Cole counted 2 horses, maybe 3. They dismounted and crouched low, thinking the night hid them. It didn't. Not from someone trained to track men through worse landscapes than this. Cole steadied his breathing, the rifle braced, finger resting light on the trigger. Ayanna stayed behind the bed, both hands pressed to her blanket-covered chest, trying not to let her fear make sound. Her wound throbbed so hard it felt like it wanted to tear open again, but she kept still. She watched Cole, watching the door like her life depended on the line of his shoulders staying solid. One boot crunched on loose gravel outside, then another. Cole's pulse sharpened. He leaned just enough to see a shadow reaching for the latch. The intruder shoved the door. It rattled against the chest Cole had braced against it. "House looks empty," one man whispered outside. "Maybe she crawled off somewhere to die. Or maybe the cowboy's playing hero," another said. That voice. Ayanna recognized it. Her breath hitched. Cole heard it. He glanced back at her for a fraction of a second, face tightening with understanding. These men weren't strangers to her. These were the same ones who had tried to break her future. A rifle barrel tapped the window frame. Cole shifted silently, sighting toward the sound. The man outside squinted, lifting the barrel higher to peek inside. Cole fired. Glass exploded outward in a burst. A heavy thud followed, and one body dropped outside the wall without a word. The second man cursed and dove for cover behind a rock. The third rider scrambled back toward the horses. Ayanna flinched at the shot, hand pressed hard to her side. She had seen violence before, but feeling protected in the middle of it was new and confusing. Cole chambered another round in one practice motion. Outside, the men panicked. "Cowboy's alone," one yelled. "We can take him." Cole yelled back through the door, voice hard as the rifle steel. "Try it." Ayanna saw something in him then, what kept him alive in war. Not anger, not aggression, calculation. He wasn't reckless. Every move had purpose. A second shot rang out from the darkness, this time toward the cabin. The bullet punched a hole through the wood a foot above Ayanna's head. She ducked lower instinctively, heart pounding fast enough to make her wound scream. Cole's voice cut sharp. "Stay down. Don't move." She nodded, unable to speak. The riders regrouped, farther now, trying to decide whether their bounty was worth dying over. She heard one whisper, "We bring her back. We're paid big. Boss wants her alive." Ayanna's stomach turned. They didn't care who they killed to reclaim her. Cole lined another shot, fired, and a scream pealed out into the night. Someone dropped a weapon and scrambled away. Moments later, hooves thundered. They fled. Their shouts faded as they disappeared into the dark trail below. Silence hit the cabin like a weight. Cole didn't move for several seconds, rifle still aimed, eyes scanning. Only when he was certain they were truly gone did his shoulders ease an inch. He set the rifle down and crossed to the window, checking the ground for motion. Ayanna stayed where she was until he turned. "It's over," he said quietly, "for now." She tried to rise, but dizziness overtook her. Cole crossed the room in 2 steps, steadying her before she collapsed. His hands were strong on her arms, but gentle. His concern wasn't loud, but it was real. "They'll come back," she said, voice small but certain. "Then we'll be ready again," he replied. He helped her sit on the bed, adjusting the blanket back over her shoulder where fear had loosened her grip. She looked at him a long moment. The man who could have stayed uninvolved, who could have let trouble pass by his land, but instead chose to stand with someone he met less than a day ago. "Why risk your life?" she asked softly. "You owe me nothing." Cole looked down at the floorboards, as if words were knives he wasn't used to holding anymore. When he did speak, his voice came quiet but firm. "I've watched too many good people suffer because nobody stepped in. I'm not doing that anymore." Ayanna's chest tightened. Not from pain, but from a feeling she didn't expect to have again. Safety. Cole stood and started dragging the second body from the window. "Come morning, I'm burying him far from here. You don't need to see that." Ayanna stared into the dying fire's glow. "I have seen more than enough already," she whispered. but I don't want to be hidden anymore. He paused, respect registering in the silence between them. You won't be, he said. Cole returned to her side, checking the binding around her ribs. She winced but didn't pull away. He tightened it with careful fingers. You need sleep, he told her. Will you stay beside me? She asked. Not pleading, requesting clarity. I'll be right here, he answered without hesitation. She finally let herself lay back, her breathing evening out slowly. Cole sat in the chair again, rifle across his lap, eyes fixed on the door. Ayanna watched him through half-lidded eyes until sleep pulled her under. Cole stayed awake as night continued outside, listening, waiting, guarding. Not because he had to, because he had chosen to. And that choice was turning into something neither of them fully understood yet. But they both felt it growing. Morning light slipped through the boarded window, thin but enough to show how long the night had been. Cole's eyes were red from staying awake, but his posture hadn't slacked once. He stood as soon as Ayanna stirred, checking the ridge again through the gaps in the wood before turning back to her. Her body ached everywhere, but the fever had eased a little. The pain in her side pulsed with each breath, yet remained tolerable. She blinked at him, trying to process that she was still alive and still in the same bed where someone had protected her rather than harmed her. Cole poured water, held it out. Sip slow. She did, watching him closely. There were questions in her eyes that hadn't been answered, questions not about danger, but about him. Those men, she whispered, they talked about a boss. A rich rancher who pays for women. They said he wanted me because I fought back. They want control through fear. Cole nodded once. He had suspected there was someone behind it. A bigger threat. Ayanna hadn't chosen trouble. Trouble had chosen her because someone powerful believed no one would defend her. He set the cup down. We'll deal with them, one step at a time. She studied him. Why were you riding out there at that hour? What were you looking for? Cole didn't avoid the answer. Supplies. I hunt mornings. Trade in town once a month. Then come back before anyone remembers I exist. You don't want people close, she said. I thought I didn't. His voice was low, honest. But leaving you out there wasn't an option. Her gaze softened. I would have died. You won't, he said. Not while I'm breathing. He needed to take care of the body outside before midday heat hit. But he wouldn't leave her unguarded. He walked to the door, turning his rifle over in his hands. I'll be right outside. You keep the pistol on the table. If anyone steps inside who isn't me, you shoot. Don't hesitate. Ayanna nodded. She didn't want to kill, but she would if there was no choice. She wasn't the same person who ran terrified through the night. Cole had given her something fragile but powerful, belief that she could survive. Cole dragged the dead man farther into the desert, where scavengers wouldn't bring attention. He worked fast, but not sloppy. Military training never truly left. When he returned, sweat on his brow, Ayanna was sitting upright, the pistol beside her. She had checked the chamber, just as he taught her before stepping out. You learn fast, he said. I had to, she answered. He made breakfast, eggs, biscuits from stale flour, but she ate every bite. Hunger had become a stranger to her, replaced by fear so long she forgot what it felt like to be full. Afterward, Cole stepped outside again, scanning the horizon. Ayanna watched him through the window, not wanting him out of sight. When he returned, he sat across from her, elbows on his knees. We need a plan, he said. They'll regroup. More might come. Then you should leave me, she replied, eyes steady. If I go, they follow me. You stay safe. He shook his head firmly. That's not happening. You don't owe me anything. I owe myself one clean decision, he said. And I made it. Emotion hit her throat too hard to hide. She looked away quickly, wiping a tear before he noticed, though he already had. Cole gave her time before continuing. Tell me about the dream. The one that made you think we're... He hesitated, the word unfamiliar in his mouth connected. Ayanna took a breath, choosing each detail carefully. In my people's belief, dreams are warnings or guidance. I saw a man standing alone in a place like this. Same ridge, same sky, same silence around him. His hands held a life he didn't think he deserved anymore. The spirits called him the protector of lost people. They showed me his face. She looked at Cole directly. It was yours. Cole didn't know what to do with the weight of that. He wasn't a protector. He was a man trying not to fail again. But Ayanna believed it, and belief changed how fear behaved. He cleared his throat. Dreams can be wrong. They can, she said, but they brought me here alive. He couldn't argue. Her hand slipped from the blanket to his. The touch wasn't bold, more like she was making sure he hadn't turned into a memory overnight. Cole didn't pull away. His fingers didn't move, but he let her hold on. Ayanna's voice lowered. What will you do when they come again? Cole met her eyes, calm and absolute. Make sure they never hurt you or anyone else again. One knock on the door would shatter all peace. One gunshot from the ridge could end everything. But for now, the threat wasn't inside. For the first time in years, Cole let himself breathe without expecting the world to punch back instantly. Ayanna didn't feel like a burden anymore. She felt like purpose. Cole squeezed her hand once, just once, enough to tell her he had chosen his side, and he wasn't changing it. The sun climbed higher, warming the dusty ground outside the cabin. Cole stood at the workbench sharpening his knife, metal scraping in controlled, even strokes. It wasn't a nervous habit. It was preparation. He had no illusions. Danger had only stepped back to gather strength. Inside, Ayanna sat up with effort and checked the pistol again. She inspected the cylinder the way Cole taught her, wanting to understand the weapon that might save her life. Each cautious motion revealed more determination than fear. She looked up and studied Cole. He moved like a man who had spent years planning for threats that never came, except now they finally had. The distance in his expression wasn't coldness. It was the instinct of someone who had learned that caring too strongly could cost lives. You have killed men before, she said quietly from the bed, not accusing but acknowledging a truth. Cole didn't pause the sharpening. War taught me fast. I've done things I can't undo. But you killed last night to save my life. He finally set the knife down and wiped the blade with a cloth. That doesn't erase the rest. Ayanna watched him while holding her side. She could see he wasn't proud of what he did, but he would do it again to protect someone who didn't deserve harm. That mattered more than a clean past. She shifted upright, wincing. In our law, a man who protects a woman from those who take by force is bound to her. Not through ownership, but respect. Choice given and choice kept. Cole turned toward her. And what if the man doesn't believe he deserves any bond like that? Then he learns, she answered, voice steady. He sat near the fire to brew coffee, needing a moment to let the conversation cool before emotions pushed him into territory he didn't understand. The smell of the bitter drink filled the air. He poured her a small amount mixed with water so it wouldn't hit her empty stomach too hard. Drink, he said. It will help you wake up. She took a careful sip, tasting the burnt edge of the grounds. Her eyes followed him as he checked the rifle again, then pushed the dresser further against the door for reinforcement. Every action said, asterisk I stay. I defend, asterisk. But Ayanna also saw something deeper. The struggle he carried always behind his ribs. What was your mission before I came? She asked. What did you wake up for each day? Cole looked toward the hills through the open roof vent. Survival. Work enough to stay alive. Breathe and hope no memories show up. That is not a mission, she said softly. That is a punishment. He didn't respond, because she was right. Ayanna's breathing slowed, but her wound ached with every word. Without thinking, she set the pistol aside and reached for his wrist again, the same place she had touched the night before. He flinched slightly, not from the touch, but from what it did to his insides. Ayanna noticed that fear, not of her, but of feeling anything at all. You carry guilt as if it keeps others safe, she said. But you save me because it is who you are. That is not guilt. That is strength. Cole held still for a long moment. He wanted to answer, but couldn't find the right words. Instead, he helped settle her back against the pillows, his hand pressing lightly to her shoulder to keep her steady. She didn't resist. Being close to him no longer felt dangerous. It felt like survival. Outside, a distant rifle shot cracked through the air. Both froze. Cole grabbed the rifle and moved toward the slit of the window. He scanned the ridge. Nothing. But a second sound followed. A horse's distress cry. Ayanna tensed, preparing to rise despite the pain. Stay, he said quickly. I'll look. No, she answered just as fast. I will not hide while you fight alone. You can barely stand, he reminded her. I can shoot. He studied her, saw the fire in her eyes, and nodded once. She slid off the bed, teeth clenched against the sharp pain in her side. Cole grabbed one of his cleaner shirts from a peg and handed it to her. You should cover more, he said, keeping his voice neutral. She slipped it over her shoulders, the garment nearly swallowing her small frame, but protecting her dignity and warmth. Cole helped button the front without staring anywhere except the fabric in his hands. When he finished, she rested a hand, just briefly, over his. I trust you, she whispered. He opened the door slowly, rifle raised. The sunlight was harsh, revealing dust kicked up on the trail, leading toward the creek. A lone horse limped into view, saddle twisted, reins dragging. Blood streaked the animal's flank. Cole recognized the brand. Same ranch as the attackers from last night. He stepped out, motioning Ayanna to wait by the doorway with the pistol ready. He approached carefully, calming the horse with low murmurs. The animal was terrified, eyes wild. Attached to the saddle horn was a ripped scrap of fabric, same style as Ayanna's dress. Her breath caught. That belonged to Yanit, a woman who ran with me. Cole's expression darkened. They caught her. Ayanna shook her head. She broke free. We split, so they would have to choose who to chase. They chose you, Cole said, understanding the weight of that. Ayanna swallowed. They want the one who fights back. She was quiet. They think quiet means less trouble. Cole checked the saddlebag. Food, rope, a broken knife. No note, no message, just evidence that the men hunting Ayanna were getting desperate. He brought the horse near the stable and returned inside with her. You did not answer one question, Ayanna said once the door was closed again. What question? He asked. Why you stayed behind after the war? Why you didn't go back to the one you loved? Cole didn't want to speak about it, but keeping everything inside hadn't saved him so far. I almost married. Her name was Clara. She waited while I was away. But when I came back, I wasn't the same. I had nightmares. Rage I couldn't put somewhere safe. I pushed her away before I hurt her. Ayanna listened carefully. You believe you only hurt, but you also protect. Cole forced a bitter breath through his nose. Too late to tell her that. Not too late for someone else, she said quietly. Their eyes held for a long moment, unbroken, unguarded. Then Cole looked away. We need to prepare. They'll track this horse here. Ayanna nodded, gripping the pistol tighter. Cole walked behind her, placing one steady hand on her shoulder. She felt his strength through that simple gesture, the promise in his touch. You're not alone anymore, he said. And neither are you, she replied, her voice stronger than it had been since they met. Outside, the wind shifted again, carrying distant hoofbeats toward the cabin. Enemies were coming. But this time, they would not find two scared strangers waiting. They would find two people who had chosen to stand together. They heard the hoofbeats before they saw anything. Slow at first, then more confident as the riders drew closer. Knowing the land gave them every advantage. The sound vibrated through the wooden walls like a threat knocking from the outside world. Cole, crouched by the window, rifle barrel resting on the windowsill through a gap he had widened with his knife. Ayanna stayed close behind him, leaning on the table for support, the pistol gripped tight in both hands. Her breathing was shallow but focused. She was no longer the terrified woman crawling through the dust. There was resolve in her eyes now, hard-earned. Cole spoke without turning. If they break in, you don't warn them. You shoot. I won't let them touch you again. I will not let them take me, Ayanna replied, matching his seriousness. I choose to live, with my own will. Her words steadied him more than he expected. 3 riders came into view, different from the ones before. Better armed, more deliberate in their approach. Their horses snorted, uneasy, sensing tension in the air. The leader, a tall man with a well-kept vest and a silver badge that wasn't official, looked the cabin over. He wasn't sloppy muscle like the others. He looked like someone who paid men to do the dirty work first. He called out, Maddox, we know who you are. We know you were a soldier. Don't make this difficult. Ayanna stiffened. Cole had not told him his last name. The leader already knew it, which meant they had planned for him. Cole's voice carried strength that didn't need shouting. "You're not welcome here. Ride away and live." The man laughed once, amused. "I'm not here to bargain. I want the girl you found. She's worth more than you can imagine." Ayana's hand trembled, not from fear, but anger. Cole leaned out slightly. "She's not for sale." The leader's smile faded. "You know how this ends if you refuse." "I do," Cole said. "With you underground." The leader raised his rifle. Cole fired first. The leader fell from his horse, hitting the dirt with a shout. The other two scrambled behind the trough and the shed, returning wild shots in panic. Bullets tore through the cabin walls. Ayana ducked as wood splinters flew past her ear. Cole fired again, slow, precise, his soldier training showing with every measured movement. A second rider dropped. The third man panicked immediately and jumped onto his horse. Cole aimed, but Ayana raised her voice urgently. "No, let him ride. He will carry the message. We are not prey." Cole lowered the rifle without argument. The man fled, dust rising behind him like a fading signal of defeat. Silence hit again, the violent kind that always follows a gunfight. Cole scanned for movement, then slowly stood. "It's over," he said, but kept the rifle ready. Ayana exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for years. Cole went outside, checking both fallen men. One was dead. The leader wasn't. He groaned, gripping his shoulder where the bullet had hit. Cole stood over him, rifle angled slightly downward. "You're done here," Cole said. "You tell whoever sent you that if he wants to die too, he can come himself." The man grimaced, blood thick at his sleeve. "You think this ends because you say so? She's property. Men with money decide her worth, not you." "She decides," Cole answered. "That's law here." He kicked the man's gun away, then dragged him upright and pushed him onto his horse. "Ride. Don't come back." As the wounded man disappeared over the ridge, Cole lingered outside a moment longer, scanning every path, every shadow. Only when he was sure did he go back in. Ayana was sitting on the bed again, forehead damp with sweat from both pain and the strain of standing earlier. But her eyes, they shined with something fierce, something proud. Cole knelt in front of her, inspecting her bandage. His hands moved gently, careful not to touch anywhere she didn't allow. She looked down at his hands and then at his face. "You could have walked away," she said. "Let them take me. It would have erased your danger." Cole shook his head. "I walked away too many times already." He tightened her bandage, fingers steady despite everything shaking inside him. When he finished, she touched his hand lightly. "You fought for me like I mattered." "You do," he said, dead serious. Ayana swallowed hard. "No man has said that to me without wanting something in return." "I want you alive," he replied. "That's enough." She searched his eyes, looking for lies, for lust, for hidden price. She found none. "Why did you leave your company, Cole?" she asked softly. "Truly." He hesitated, but some walls, after so long, start cracking on their own. "I saw a boy die because I hesitated. 1 second, and he never breathed again. I promised I'd never fail someone like that again. But I didn't know how to be around people afterward without seeing ghosts." He looked down, voice sanded rough by old guilt. "So I left before I broke anything else." "You did not break me," Ayana whispered. "You saved me." Cole exhaled slowly, as if releasing something he'd been holding since the war. He rose to check the door again, but Ayana caught his hand before he stepped away. "You are not alone here," she said. "Not anymore." Cole looked at her fingers holding his, small but strong. The connection startled him, not because of its intimacy, but because of how right it felt. He spoke quietly. "Rest now. I'll keep watch." Ayana leaned back against the pillows, trusting him enough to close her eyes. Her breathing steadied gradually, the first real peace she'd had since the attack. Cole sat near her, rifle across his knees, eyes locked on the world outside. But his free hand stayed resting close to hers, close enough that if fear woke her, she'd find him there immediately. The danger wasn't gone, but neither was their resolve. Enemies now knew her worth. Cole did too, and that changed everything. Cole didn't sleep that night. He sat with the rifle across his knees, listening for hoofbeats that didn't come. Every crackle of the fire made him turn his head. Every shift of the wind made his hand move closer to the trigger. The threat wasn't gone. It had simply retreated to gather more strength. Ayana woke before dawn, her breathing sharp with pain as she tried to adjust her position. Cole stood immediately, but she raised a hand to show she wasn't in danger, only sore and tired of being helpless. "I'm used to walking miles in a day," she said quietly. "Now I can barely sit up." "Your body's healing," Cole replied. "You push too hard, you'll bleed again." She gave a frustrated exhale, then studied the room. The furniture moved against the walls, the rifle and knife within Cole's reach, the lanterns positioned to cast light in every corner. Realization struck her. "You stayed awake all night." He shrugged, avoiding the weight of that truth. "Couldn't risk anything sneaking up on us." Her eyes softened with something deeper than gratitude. "You protect even when no one sees you do it." Cole didn't respond. Compliments slid off him like rain on stone. Not because he thought they weren't true, but because he didn't believe he deserved them. He helped her sit up and placed water in her hands. "We need to think ahead," he said. "Last group was scouting. Next will be larger. And stronger," she added. He nodded. "I can't fight an army alone." Ayana lowered her gaze. For a moment, fear flickered again. Not the fear of dying, but the fear of being forced back into a life she'd rather die than return to. "There is something I didn't tell you," she said. "The rancher, the one who hunts us, he knows me." Cole froze. "Ow!" "He came to our camp many months ago, pretending to trade. He looked at me with a hunger that had nothing to do with food. My father refused him. We moved quickly, but he followed, watching, waiting. So this isn't about money," Cole said. "No, he wants possession, power." She clenched her jaw. "Men like him want to break the strongest woman first." Cole's grip on the rifle tightened. He had seen powerful men prey on the vulnerable before, and he had been too late more times than he could live with. "He'll come personally next time," Cole predicted. "Men like that don't forgive humiliation." Ayana nodded, knowing it wasn't if, but when. Cole paced a moment, thinking, "We should move. Prepare a place where they can't surround us." "There's a ridge north of here," she said. "Steep rock. Only one path in. Hard approach, easy to defend." Cole looked impressed. "You scouted this land before?" "I survived on it," she answered. "Being hunted teaches you every safe place." Cole loaded their supplies into saddlebags: food, ammunition, blankets, water. Ayana struggled to stand, wincing as the stitches pulled. Cole stepped close and offered his arm. She grasped him without hesitation this time. Trust no longer had question marks around it. When they stepped outside, morning light revealed something that made Ayana stop cold. 4 men's graves on the hill behind cabin. Fresh earth, markers made from spare boards. "You buried them," she whispered. "We don't leave bodies to rot," he said simply. Whatever they were still people once. Ayana lowered her head respectfully. Even enemies deserve that final dignity, or so she believed. Cole's respect for the dead showed her something important. He didn't protect out of rage. He protected out of principle. Cole helped her onto the horse first. She gripped the saddle horn and waited as he mounted behind her, his arms braced lightly around her waist to steady her. As they started toward the ridge, Ayana leaned back slightly, pain weakening her posture. Cole instinctively pulled her closer so she wouldn't sway. "You all right?" he asked. "Yes," she breathed. "Your presence makes pain smaller." He didn't answer, but she felt how tightly he held the reins. Keeping her steady meant everything to him now. They rode through rocky passes and dry brush until the land opened into a high overlook with natural stone walls. One entrance, one exit, a fortress formed by nature. "It will work," Cole said. Ayana slid off the horse with care, legs trembling. Cole quickly wrapped an arm around her back, helping her stay upright. Their faces ended up close, closer than either planned. Ayana saw the scar beneath his jaw clearly now, the tired lines under his eyes, the concern he didn't hide. "Why do you fear letting someone care for you?" she asked softly. Cole's voice was breath-thin. "Because the last time I cared too much, death followed." Ayana placed a hand against his chest, warm, steady, grounding. "Then care again, and see what lives this time." He didn't step away. He didn't shut down. He only breathed, deep, unsure but alive. They began building a shelter against the rock, blankets stretched between boulders, fire pits scraped out from dust and gravel. Cole taught her how to stack branches for the fire. She taught him how to listen for movement beyond sight. For the first time, they worked as partners. As afternoon warmed the ridge, Ayana rested against the rock wall while Cole stood guard. Her eyes kept drifting to him, his quiet, his restraint, his refusal to turn away from danger. She saw not just a protector, but a man rediscovering the part of himself he thought died in the war. Cole finally glanced back at her. Their eyes met, and for several seconds neither looked away. "You are not cursed," Ayana said, voice sure. "You were chosen, and you chose me." Cole swallowed hard. Emotion pressed against every word he tried to speak. "I didn't choose you," he said. "You survived your way into my life. Now I won't let it go to waste." Ayana smiled, small but real, and leaned her head back, exhausted but unbroken. The wind shifted again, carrying dust and the faint, unmistakable echo of riders, still distant but closing in. Cole stepped in front of her, rifle raised. He didn't tell her to hide. He didn't tell her to stay silent. This time, they would stand together. Ayana steadied her breathing, fingers tightening around the pistol. "You fight," Cole said, eyes on the horizon, voice as serious as it had ever been, "and I'll be right here." "I know," she answered. And for the first time, instead of fear, she felt ready. The sun had barely lifted when dust rose on the horizon. Riders. More than before. Cole counted at least 6, maybe 7, silhouettes shifting behind heat waves. The wealthy rancher was among them. Ayana recognized the tall, straight posture, the arrogance in the way he held the reins, as if the entire land bowed to him. She steadied her breathing and tightened her grip on the pistol. Cole glanced back at her once, reading her state of mind with one look. "If they get past me," he said, voice low, "you shoot for the one in front. The man who thinks he owns the world." Ayana nodded. "I will." Cole positioned himself between her and the open path. The riders slowed as they neared the narrow entry. The rancher pushed ahead, smiling the way a fox smiles when it sees a wounded rabbit. "That woman is mine," he called. "I paid for her once. I'll pay again if you're smart, Maddox." "She's not for sale," Cole replied. "Everything is for sale," the rancher snapped. "Especially women who think they can run." Ayana stepped forward despite the pain. "I was never yours. I will never belong to a man like you." The rancher's smile slipped. "Shoot the cowboy. Leave the girl alive." Cole fired first. The shot dropped the nearest attacker from his horse. Chaos exploded. Gunfire cracked against rock, bullets sparking off stone walls. Cole used the narrow canyon to his advantage. Each rider had to approach one at a time, and each one fell or scrambled to avoid getting shot. Ayana kept low behind a boulder, returning fire only when a target was clear. Her pulse thudded heavy in her ears, but her aim stayed focused. She hit a man trying to flank Cole, and he toppled backward into dust. The rancher dismounted and took cover behind a rock. He wasn't reckless like the others. He waited until Cole finished reloading, then rushed forward. Cole spun to meet him, but the rancher tackled him hard. They crashed into the dirt, rifles knocked aside. The rancher punched with surprising strength, fueled by entitlement and rage. "You think you can save her?" he growled. "I take what I want." Cole shoved him off and swung back, fist smashing into the man's jaw. But his old injuries slowed him. Pain shot through his ribs from a long-forgotten wound. The rancher grabbed Cole by the throat, slamming him against the rock. "You're nothing," he spat. "A broken soldier playing house with stolen property." Ayana struggled to her feet, limping toward the fight with pistol shaking in her grip. Pain blurred her vision, but she kept moving. Cole clawed at the rancher's wrist, breath choking out. "Ayana," he gasped. Her voice was steady. "Let him go." The rancher turned, smirking. "Or what? You'll cry." She didn't cry. She fired. The bullet struck his shoulder, spinning him backward and ripping his hand from Cole's throat. Cole coughed, stumbling to his knees, air burning back into his lungs. Ayana stood fully now, pistol still aimed. The rancher stared at her with disbelief. She wasn't the terrified woman he had chased. She was a survivor who had chosen to fight. "You will not take me," she said. "Not ever." The rancher stumbled, grabbed his horse's reins, and fled, clutching his bleeding shoulder. The remaining men, seeing their leader run, followed in panic. The ridge fell silent except for the fading thunder of hooves. Ayana's pistol slipped from her hand. Her knees buckled. Cole caught her before she hit the ground and lowered her gently against the rock. He checked her side, stitches strained, blood damp but not pouring. "You did it," he said, breath still uneven. "You saved us." Ayana met his eyes, voice weak. "We saved each other." Cole helped her sit more comfortably, then sat beside her, back against the rock wall. They both listened to the quiet that came after victory, a quiet that didn't feel like fear anymore. "You're hurt," she whispered, seeing the bruising on his throat. "I'll heal," he said. "You need a doctor." Ayana's expression tightened. "Doctors don't treat Apache women. They finish what enemies start." Cole shook his head. "Not where we're going." She blinked. "Where is that?" "Down. A good place. A new start." He looked toward the direction the riders fled. "They won't stop, but they'll think twice before coming here again." Ayana leaned her head gently against his shoulder, exhausted. Cole's hand lifted slowly, as if asking permission before touching. When she didn't pull away, he rested his palm over hers, warm and steady. "I'm not letting you go back to running," Cole said. "Not while I'm here. And you won't be leaving me alone in shadows anymore," she replied. Cole turned slightly to face her. There was no rush, no desperation, just the slow realization that he had found the one reason to stay alive that wasn't built on guilt. He tipped her chin up lightly, his fingers calloused yet careful. Her dark eyes searched his, looking for hesitation. She found none. Their lips met, not the kiss of strangers pulled together by danger. A kiss of two people choosing each other, fully awake, fully aware, fully alive. When they finally parted, breath mixing, Ayana rested her forehead against his. "Does this place mean we are husband and wife now?" she asked softly. Cole nodded once, a quiet smile forming, the kind of smile he had forgotten how to make. "If you want it." Ayana's fingers curled into his shirt, holding him close. "I dreamed of you before I knew your name. Now I want to dream beside you, every night, in safety." Cole stood, lifting her carefully into his arms, holding her like she'd never be dropped. She closed her eyes, trusting him completely. They left the ridge behind them. They left danger behind them. They traveled toward a life neither thought they'd ever deserve. One built not on survival alone, but on healing, on belonging, on staying. No ghosts, no ownership, no running. Just two people who found home in each other. And they would face every tomorrow together. Yendi,